Racist mechanic rejects Snoop Dogg, but what happened next shocked everyone. It was an ordinary Tuesday morning at Martin's Auto Repair, a modest car shop tucked away in the outskirts of Los Angeles. The garage bustled with activity, mechanics rolling tool carts, engines revving, and the occasional clatter of dropped wrenches. Martin, the shop's owner, was an old-school mechanic known for his gruff demeanor. To the regulars, he was blunt and efficient, but beneath the surface, his attitude carried prejudices he barely bothered to hide. Martin stood in the middle of the garage, barking orders to his employees. "Hurry it up, folks. We don't have all day," he snapped, his voice cutting through the noise. The bell at the front of the shop jingled, signaling a new customer. Martin barely glanced up from the invoice he was scribbling on until he noticed the man walking in. Dressed in a sleek navy blue tracksuit, gold chains, and sunglasses, the figure had an air of effortless confidence. It was Snoop Dogg. Snoop had always been the kind of guy who turned heads wherever he went, not just because of his fame but because of the way he carried himself, calm, cool, and unbothered. As he walked up to the counter, the shop's activity seemed to pause. Mechanics stopped what they were doing, sneaking glances at the rap legend who had just stepped into their space. Martin's eyes narrowed. He recognized Snoop immediately, but instead of being impressed, his face hardened. "What can I do for you?" Martin asked curtly, not bothering to hide the edge in his tone. Snoop gave him a polite smile, ignoring the hostility. "My car's been acting up, man. Engine's been sputtering. Think you can take a look?" Martin folded his arms, glancing at the luxury car parked just outside the shop, a sleek black convertible that looked worth more than the entire garage. "That your car out there?" he asked, though he already knew the answer. Snoop nodded. "Yeah, she needs a little TLC." Martin scoffed, shaking his head. "Sorry, we're full up. Don't have time to deal with that kind of car." Snoop tilted his head slightly, his smile fading just a fraction. "That kind of car?" he repeated, his tone calm but questioning. "Yeah, you heard me," Martin said, his voice dripping with disdain. "We don't work on show-off rides like that. Try a dealership or something." The tension in the room thickened as the other mechanics exchanged uneasy glances. They knew Martin's tone all too well, and it wasn't just the car he had a problem with. Snoop, however, stayed composed, his years in the public eye teaching him how to handle situations like this with grace. I hear you," Snoop said evenly, stepping back toward the door. But before he left, he turned back to Martin. "Just so you know, it ain't the car you're rejecting. It's me. And that's cool. But don't trip when the energy you're putting out comes back your way." Martin snorted, waving him off. "Whatever you say, buddy. Good luck finding someone else to fix your ride." Outside, Snoop slid back into his convertible, still as calm as ever, though his mind was already turning. This wasn't the first time he'd faced prejudice, and he knew it wouldn't be the last. But what Martin didn't know was that Snoop had a way of turning these moments into opportunities, not just for himself but for others. Snoop pulled out his phone and made a quick call. "Yo, Jimmy, I'ma need a favor," he said, speaking to a friend who ran a popular car customization shop downtown. "Got a situation I need to flip?" Jimmy laughed on the other end. "Say less, big homie. Bring it through." Back at the shop, Martin went about his day as if nothing had happened. He didn't think twice about the interaction, assuming Snoop would fade into the background like any other customer he'd dismissed. But the mechanics couldn't shake the unease they felt. They knew Martin's attitude was wrong, but speaking up felt risky. "Man, did you see who that was?" one of the younger mechanics whispered to a colleague. "That was Snoop Dogg. Dude's a legend." "Yeah, but you know how Martin is," the other replied quietly. "If he don't like you, he don't care who you are." The rest of the day passed uneventfully, but Martin's actions were already setting the stage for a lesson he wouldn't soon forget. Snoop pulled up to Jimmy's shop, where a team of skilled mechanics and car enthusiasts greeted him like family. They got to work immediately, not just fixing the issues with his car but elevating it to a whole new level. Jimmy, an expert in customization, threw in a few upgrades for good measure. "Man, this ride's gonna turn heads," Jimmy said as he polished the hood. "What you planning to do next?" Snoop leaned against the wall, watching the team work with a satisfied smile. "Gonna use this as a teachable moment," he said. Some people need to see what they're missing out on when they let their ignorance get in the way. A few days later, Martin's auto repair was running as usual when the sound of a roaring engine filled the air. Heads turned as Snoop's convertible pulled into the lot, now glistening with custom detailing and shining rims. The mechanic stared in awe, but Martin's face twisted in annoyance. Snoop stepped out, his demeanor as calm as ever. "Yo, Martin," he called, his voice carrying across the garage. "Got a minute?" Martin frowned but walked over reluctantly. "Didn't I tell you we don't work on those kinds of cars?" Snoop chuckled, shaking his head. "Nah, I'm not here for that. Just thought you'd want to see what you passed up." Martin's eyes narrowed as he glanced at the car, clearly annoyed but refusing to acknowledge its beauty. "What's your point?" he snapped. "The point," Snoop said, his tone steady, "is that people like you keep underestimating folks like me. But I'm good with that. Every no I get just makes the yes even sweeter. And trust me, there's plenty of yes out there." Martin crossed his arms, his jaw tightening as he stared at Snoop Dogg. The luxury car, now gleaming with polished chrome and intricate detailing, was impossible to ignore. The other mechanics stood around the edges of the garage, watching the interaction unfold with a mix of curiosity and discomfort. Yeah, it's a nice car," Martin muttered dismissively, though his gaze betrayed a hint of envy. "What do you want, an apology?" Snoop smiled faintly, shaking his head. "I don't need your apology, Martin. I didn't come here for me. I came here for your guys." He motioned to the other mechanics, who were now fully engaged, their tools forgotten. "They're watching how you handle yourself. Every word, every choice you make? It's teaching them something." Martin's face darkened. "I don't need a lecture from you about how to run my shop. That's your problem right there," Snoop said, his tone calm but firm. "You think leadership is about telling people what to do. But real leaders inspire. They set the tone, show others how to move. And right now, you're teaching them how to be small-minded." The words hung in the air, the tension palpable. Martin opened his mouth to retort but was interrupted by one of the younger mechanics, a kid barely out of trade school named Kyle. Mr. Martin," Kyle said nervously, stepping forward. I think he's got a point. I mean, I've been learning a lot here, but sometimes," he hesitated, glancing at Snoop for reassurance before continuing. "Sometimes it feels like we could do more, you know? Like we're stuck in the past." The other mechanics exchanged glances, murmuring their agreement. Martin's face turned red, a mix of anger and embarrassment. "You want to lecture me too now?" he snapped. "I've been running this shop for 30 years. I don't need advice from some kid." "That's exactly why you need it," Snoop interjected. "Sometimes it takes fresh eyes to see what's broken. And from where I'm standing, there's a lot you could fix, starting with how you treat people." Snoop turned to the mechanics, his demeanor shifting to something more encouraging. "Look, I get it. Y'all are just trying to do your jobs, keep your heads down. But don't let anyone, not even your boss, make you think you're less than. You've got skills, talent, and drive. Don't waste it following someone who doesn't see your value." The mechanics nodded, their spirits lifted by Snoop's words. For many of them, this was the first time someone had acknowledged their worth beyond the work they did. Kyle, emboldened by Snoop's confidence, spoke up again. "Mr. Dogg," he said hesitantly, "what would you do if you were us? I mean, how do you deal with people like, you know?" Snoop smiled, appreciating the sincerity of the question. "First off, call me Snoop. Second, you don't let other people's ignorance hold you back. You focus on your craft, your vision, and you let your work speak for itself. The more you grow, the louder your work gets, and eventually, the right people will hear it." Meanwhile, Martin stood off to the side, fuming silently. He felt the balance of power in his shop shifting, the respect he'd always commanded now waning in the presence of someone who exuded genuine leadership. For the first time, he felt a pang of doubt. Maybe, just maybe, there was some truth in what Snoop was saying. "I don't have time for this," Martin finally grumbled, turning to walk away. "Then make time," Snoop called after him, his voice sharp enough to make Martin pause. "You think this is about me? Nah, this is about you. About how you're running your shop, treating your team, and carrying yourself. You can't fix an engine if you don't pop the hood and look inside." Same goes for life. Martin froze, his back still to Snoop, before finally muttering, "You think you've got all the answers, don't you?" Snoop shook his head. "Nah, I don't. But I know this much. When you treat people right, they'll go to war for you. And when you don't, they'll walk away. You've got a choice to make, Martin." Snoop turned back to the mechanics, clapping his hands together. "All right, fellas, I didn't come here just to talk. I came to see some talent. Who wants to show me what they've got?" The tension eased as the mechanics exchanged glances, a few of them stepping forward eagerly. Kyle was the first to approach Snoop, his excitement clear. "I've been working on a custom exhaust system," he said. "It's not done yet, but I think it's got potential." "Let's see it," Snoop said, his tone encouraging. Over the next hour, the garage transformed from a tense battleground into a space of creativity and collaboration. The mechanics showcased their projects, sharing ideas and techniques with Snoop, who listened intently and offered genuine feedback. Even the older, more experienced mechanics found themselves inspired by his enthusiasm and willingness to engage. Martin watched from a distance, his irritation slowly giving way to something else, curiosity. He couldn't deny the energy in the room, the way his team seemed more motivated and confident than they had in months. For the first time, he began to wonder if maybe, just maybe, he'd been wrong. By the time Snoop was ready to leave, the mood in the shop had shifted completely. The mechanics were buzzing with excitement, their confidence renewed. As Snoop walked toward his car, Kyle ran up to him, holding out a small notebook. "Mr. Snoop, Snoop," Kyle stammered. "I've been keeping notes on some designs I've been working on. Would you take a look and tell me what you think?" Snoop took the notebook, flipping through the pages. He nodded, clearly impressed. "You've got a good eye, Kyle. Keep at it, and don't be afraid to think bigger. You've got the talent. You just need to believe in it." Kyle beamed, his hands trembling as Snoop handed the notebook back. "Thank you. This means so much." As Snoop climbed into his car, he glanced back at Martin, who was still standing near the entrance, his arms crossed but his expression softer than before. "You've got a good team here, Martin," Snoop said. "Don't waste it." Martin didn't respond, but the look in his eyes suggested that Snoop's words had struck a chord. As the convertible roared to life and Snoop drove away, the mechanics gathered around, talking excitedly about the experience. For them, it wasn't just a visit from a celebrity, it was a moment that reignited their passion and reminded them of their worth. That night, Martin sat alone in his office, staring at the tools and equipment that had defined his life for decades. For the first time in a long time, he felt a crack in the armor of his stubbornness. He thought about what Snoop had said about leadership and respect, and he wondered if it was too late to change. The next morning, Martin called his team together before the shop opened. The mechanics gathered, their expressions wary but curious. "I've been thinking about what happened yesterday," Martin began, his voice uncharacteristically hesitant. "And I realized, maybe I haven't been the best boss. I've been stuck in my ways, and it's time I start listening. Not just to customers, but to all of you." The mechanics exchanged surprised glances, unsure if they'd heard him correctly. "I want this shop to be a place where you're proud to work," Martin continued. "So if you've got ideas, projects, or anything you want to try, let's make it happen. And I'll do my part to treat everyone, customers and staff, with the respect they deserve." The silence in the garage after Martin's unexpected announcement was palpable. The mechanics exchanged glances, unsure if this was some kind of trick or a genuine change of heart. For years, Martin's gruffness and outdated attitudes had been an unshakable constant, and the idea of him acknowledging his faults seemed almost unreal. Kyle, the youngest of the group, was the first to speak. "Mr. Martin, are you serious? You really mean that?" Martin hesitated, his eyes darting between the faces of his employees. He could feel the weight of their skepticism, the years of resentment and frustration that had built up under his leadership. But for the first time, he realized how much he had taken them for granted. "Yeah," Martin said finally, his voice quieter than usual. "I mean it. Look, I know I've been hard on all of you. Too hard sometimes. But yesterday, it made me realize I've been holding this place back. I don't want to be that guy anymore." The tension in the room began to ease, replaced by cautious optimism. The mechanics could see the sincerity in Martin's face, the cracks in the armor of his pride. It wasn't a perfect apology, but it was a start. Kyle stepped forward, his notebook clutched tightly in his hands. "If that's true, Mr. Martin, then I'd like to show you something. It's a design I've been working on for a new exhaust system. I showed it to Snoop yesterday, and he said it had potential. I think it could be something big." Martin's eyes flicked to the notebook, then back to Kyle's hopeful face. For a moment, he felt the familiar urge to dismiss it, to brush off the idea as a waste of time. But then he remembered Snoop's words, "You can't fix an engine if you don't pop the hood and look inside." "All right, Kyle," Martin said, nodding. "Let's see what you've got." The rest of the morning felt like a breath of fresh air in the shop. For the first time in years, the mechanics worked with a sense of purpose and excitement, their ideas flowing freely without fear of being shot down. Kyle's exhaust system became the focus of their efforts, with everyone pitching in to refine the design and bring it to life. As the team worked, Martin found himself standing off to the side, watching them with a mix of pride and regret. He had spent so many years running the shop like a dictatorship, blind to the creativity and talent of his employees. Now, he could see what he had been missing all along. By the end of the day, the prototype for Kyle's exhaust system was complete. The mechanics gathered around as Kyle installed it on an old car they used for testing. When the engine roared to life, the sound was smooth and powerful, a testament to Kyle's ingenuity. This is amazing," Kyle said, his face lighting up with pride. "I can't believe it actually works." "Believe it, kid," one of the older mechanics said, clapping him on the back. "You did good." Even Martin couldn't hide his admiration. "You've got something special here, Kyle," he said, his voice gruff but genuine. "I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner." Kyle beamed, his confidence growing with each word of praise. For the first time, he felt like his ideas mattered, that he wasn't just another pair of hands in the shop. Word of Snoop's visit and the shop's transformation began to spread, thanks in part to a video Kyle had posted online. In the video, he shared the story of how Snoop had inspired the team to think bigger and how it had led to the creation of the new exhaust system. The video quickly went viral, drawing attention from car enthusiasts, industry professionals, and even local media. A week later, a sleek black SUV pulled into the shop's parking lot, its windows tinted to perfection. The mechanics froze, their eyes widening as Snoop Dogg stepped out, his signature swagger unmistakable. "Snoop's back?" Kyle exclaimed, practically bouncing with excitement. Snoop strolled into the garage, a smile on his face as he took in the buzz of activity. "What's up, fellas?" he called out, his voice smooth as ever. "Heard y'all been busy." Kyle rushed forward, holding up the exhaust system prototype like a trophy. "Snoop, check it out. We made it happen. It's everything you said it could be, and more." Snoop inspected the prototype, nodding with approval. "Damn, y'all really did it," he said. "This is fire for real. Y'all should be proud." The mechanics beamed, their hard work validated by the man who had inspired it. Even Martin couldn't help but smile as he watched his team bask in the moment. But Snoop wasn't done yet. He turned to Martin, his expression thoughtful. "So, Martin, what's the plan? You gonna keep this momentum going, or you gonna let it fizzle out?" Martin hesitated, his pride warring with the realization that Snoop was right. "I want to keep it going," he admitted. "I want this shop to be the kind of place where people feel proud to work, and where customers feel welcome, no matter who they are." Snoop nodded, his respect for Martin growing. "That's what I like to hear. And you know what? I think I can help." Over the next few weeks, Snoop and his team worked with the shop to take things to the next level. They helped the mechanics set up social media accounts to showcase their work, connected them with industry professionals, and even arranged for the shop to be featured in a popular car enthusiast magazine. The attention brought in a wave of new customers, many of whom were drawn by the shop's newfound reputation for innovation and inclusivity. The mechanics thrived under the spotlight, their confidence growing with each success. For Martin, the experience was humbling. He had spent so many years resisting change, only to realize that embracing it had made his shop stronger than ever. He still had a lot to learn, but he was willing to put in the effort, for his team and for himself. One evening, as the shop was closing up for the day, Martin found himself alone with Snoop. The garage was quiet, the hum of the day's work finally at rest. "Snoop," Martin said, his voice uncharacteristically soft. "I just wanted to say, thank you. For everything." Snoop smiled, leaning casually against one of the tool carts. "Ain't nothing, Martin. Just glad to see y'all thriving." "No, really," Martin insisted. "You didn't have to do any of this. But you did. And it's made me realize how much I've been holding myself, and this shop, back." Snoop clapped Martin on the shoulder. "Change ain't easy, man. But it's worth it. And hey, don't forget, you did the work too. You stepped up when it mattered." Martin nodded, his respect for Snoop now genuine and unshakable. "I'll keep stepping up. For my team, for the shop, and for myself." Snoop grinned, pulling out his phone for a quick selfie with Martin. "That's what I like to hear. Now let's keep it rollin', old man." As the weeks turned into months, Martin's auto repair transformed into a hub of innovation and inclusivity. The mechanics thrived in their newfound environment, taking on ambitious projects and earning a reputation for excellence. The shop's social media accounts, managed by Kyle, became a source of inspiration for car enthusiasts around the world, showcasing their creative builds and their journey from a small garage to a celebrated brand. Snoop Dogg continued to support the shop from a distance, occasionally stopping by to check on their progress. His visits were always a cause for excitement, drawing crowds of fans and media attention. But for Snoop, it wasn't about the fame. It was about seeing the seeds he had planted grow into something extraordinary. One day, a letter arrived at the shop, addressed to Martin. The envelope bore the logo of a major car manufacturing company, one that was known for its high-performance vehicles. Martin opened it with a mix of curiosity and disbelief. The letter was an invitation. The company had heard about the shop's innovative exhaust system and wanted to discuss a potential partnership. They were impressed by the team's ingenuity and believed their design could revolutionize the industry. Martin read the letter aloud to his team, his hands shaking slightly. The garage erupted into cheers, the mechanics high-fiving and celebrating their hard-earned success. Kyle, who had been the driving force behind the exhaust system, was speechless, his eyes welling up with tears. This is unbelievable," Kyle said, his voice trembling. "I never thought something I made could go this far." Martin placed a hand on Kyle's shoulder, his gruff exterior softened by pride. "You earned this, kid. And so did the rest of you. I'm proud of all of you." The meeting with the car manufacturer was scheduled for the following week, and the team worked tirelessly to prepare. They refined their prototype, created detailed presentations, and rehearsed their pitch until it was flawless. For many of the mechanics, this was uncharted territory, standing in a boardroom instead of a garage, but they were determined to rise to the occasion. When the day of the meeting arrived, Martin, Kyle, and a few other mechanics traveled to the manufacturer's headquarters. The sleek, modern building was a far cry from their humble shop, but they walked in with their heads held high, ready to prove their worth. The presentation was a resounding success. The executives were impressed not only by the technical brilliance of the exhaust system but also by the story behind it, a story of transformation, resilience, and teamwork. By the end of the meeting, the company had offered a partnership, complete with funding for further development and the opportunity to integrate the design into their upcoming models. As they left the headquarters, the team could hardly contain their excitement. Kyle clutched the signed agreement like a trophy, his face glowing with pride. "We did it," he said, his voice filled with wonder. "We actually did it." Martin nodded, his own excitement tempered by a sense of gratitude. "Yeah, we did. But this is just the beginning." Back at the shop, the team celebrated their success with a party, complete with music, food, and laughter. Snoop Dogg made a surprise appearance, his presence elevating the celebration to a whole new level. "You guys are killing it," Snoop said, raising a glass in a toast. "This ain't just a win for the shop. It's a win for everybody who's ever been underestimated, overlooked, or counted out. Y'all are proof that with the right mindset and a little love, anything's possible." The mechanics cheered, their spirits buoyed by Snoop's words. For them, this was more than a celebration. It was a moment of validation, a reminder that their hard work and determination had paid off. As the partnership with the car manufacturer progressed, the shop's reputation soared. They received invitations to industry events, where they showcased their innovations and shared their journey. Kyle, who had once been the quietest member of the team, became a confident spokesperson, inspiring others with his story. Martin, too, found himself stepping into a new role. He was no longer just the boss. He was a mentor, a leader, and an advocate for his team. He embraced the changes with humility, knowing that his growth had been made possible by the people around him. One evening, as the shop was closing, Martin sat in his office, reflecting on everything that had happened. The letter from the car manufacturer sat framed on his desk, a symbol of how far they had come. There was a knock at the door, and Kyle stepped in. "Hey, Mr. Martin. Got a minute?" "Of course, Kyle. What's on your mind?" Martin replied, gesturing for him to sit. Kyle hesitated for a moment before speaking. "I just wanted to say, thank you. For giving me a chance, for believing in me, and for changing the way you run this place. I know it wasn't easy, but it's made all the difference." Martin smiled, his chest swelling with pride. "You don't have to thank me, Kyle. You earned every bit of this. If anything, I should be thanking you for showing me what this place could be." They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of their shared journey settling over them. Finally, Kyle stood, a determined look in his eyes. "We've got a lot of work ahead of us, huh?" Martin chuckled. "Yeah, we do. But if there's one thing I've learned, it's that this team can handle anything." As the years went by, the shop continued to thrive, evolving into a brand synonymous with innovation and inclusivity. Martin eventually retired, passing the torch to Kyle, who took over as the shop's new owner. Under Kyle's leadership, the shop expanded, opening new locations and mentoring the next generation of mechanics. Snoop Dogg remained a close friend and supporter, often visiting to check on their progress and offer words of wisdom. For him, the shop's success was a reminder of what could happen when people came together with open minds and open hearts. The story of Martin's Auto Repair became a legend in the industry, a tale of transformation that inspired countless others to embrace change and believe in the power of teamwork. And though the faces in the shop changed over time, the spirit of resilience and innovation that Snoop had ignited remained stronger than ever. Years later, Martin's Auto Repair was no longer the modest, tucked-away shop on the outskirts of Los Angeles. It had become a symbol of ingenuity, collaboration, and second chances. The original garage was now part of a larger facility, complete with a state-of-the-art workshop, a training center for aspiring mechanics, and a showroom for their custom builds. The once quiet streets surrounding the shop buzzed with activity, as visitors from across the country came to see the place that had become a legend in the automotive world. Kyle, now in his mid-30s, walked through the bustling workshop, his signature notebook tucked under one arm. He had grown into a confident and visionary leader, earning the respect of not only his team but the entire industry. Today was an especially big day for him and the team, the unveiling of their newest innovation at a global automotive expo. "All right, team," Kyle called out, gathering the mechanics around him. "Today, we're showing the world what we're made of. This isn't just about the new exhaust system or the designs we've worked so hard on. It's about proving that we can dream big, that we belong on this stage. Let's make it count." The mechanics cheered, their energy infectious. Many of them were young, eager apprentices who had joined the shop because they had heard the story of its transformation. For them, this was more than just a job. It was a chance to be part of something extraordinary. As the team loaded their prototypes and presentations into a sleek transport truck, a familiar black SUV pulled into the lot. The mechanics erupted into excited chatter as Snoop Dogg stepped out, his easygoing smile lighting up the atmosphere. "Snoop," Kyle greeted him, extending a hand that Snoop quickly pulled into a friendly hug. "You made it." "Of course I made it," Snoop said, looking around at the buzzing shop. "I wouldn't miss this for the world. Y'all ready to take over the game today?" Kyle grinned, his confidence bolstered by Snoop's presence. "You bet we are. But seeing you here makes it even better." Snoop nodded, his expression turning thoughtful. "You've come a long way, Kyle. You and the whole team. I'm proud of y'all." "Thanks, Snoop," Kyle said, his voice full of gratitude. "We couldn't have done it without you." Snoop waved him off. "Nah man, y'all had it in you the whole time. I just gave you a little push. Now go out there and show 'em what you've got." The Automotive Expo was a spectacle of innovation and luxury, with dazzling displays from the biggest names in the industry. As Kyle and his team set up their booth, they couldn't help but feel a mix of excitement and nerves. Their space wasn't as flashy as some of the others, but it had heart, and that was what mattered most. The centerpiece of their display was the latest iteration of Kyle's exhaust system, now refined and ready for mass production. Alongside it were several custom builds, each one a testament to the team's creativity and skill. Photos and videos documenting the shop's journey played on a large screen, drawing in curious attendees. Within hours, the booth was packed with visitors. Industry professionals, journalists, and car enthusiasts crowded around, eager to learn more about the team's story and their groundbreaking designs. Kyle and the mechanics answered questions with ease, their passion shining through with every word. In the middle of the bustling crowd, a well-dressed man approached Kyle. He introduced himself as a representative from a major international automaker, one whose name carried immense weight in the industry. "Mr. Kyle," the man said, extending a hand. "I've been following your team's work for some time now, and I must say, I'm impressed. Your designs are not only innovative but also practical, a rare combination." "Thank you," Kyle replied, shaking the man's hand. "It means a lot to hear that." The man smiled. "I'd like to discuss the possibility of a partnership. Your exhaust system could revolutionize our upcoming line of eco-friendly vehicles, and I believe we can help you take it to the next level." Kyle's heart raced. This was the kind of opportunity he had dreamed of, one that could elevate the shop to new heights while staying true to their values. "Let's set up a meeting," Kyle said, his voice steady despite his excitement. "I'd love to hear more about what you have in mind." As the day went on, the team's booth continued to attract attention. By the time the expo ended, they had secured not only the interest of major automakers but also a slew of new customers and collaborators. For Kyle and the mechanics, it was a triumph, a validation of their hard work and dedication. Back at the shop, the celebration continued late into the night. The team gathered around a bonfire in the courtyard, sharing stories, laughter, and dreams for the future. Snoop Dogg sat among them, blending in as if he had always been part of their family. "You know what I love about y'all?" Snoop said, raising a toast. "It ain't just the cars or the designs. It's the way you lift each other up. That's what makes this place special. Don't ever lose that." The mechanics cheered, their spirits soaring. For them, the journey was far from over, but they knew they had what it took to keep moving forward. As the years went by, Martin's Auto Repair, now rebranded as Reynolds Automotive Innovations, became a global phenomenon. They opened training centers in underprivileged communities, offering young people the chance to learn valuable skills and build better futures. Their designs set new standards in the industry, earning them awards and accolades from around the world. Kyle, now a respected leader and innovator, never forgot the lessons he had learned along the way. He made sure the shop remained a place of inclusivity and creativity, where every voice mattered and every idea was valued. And Martin, though retired, often visited the shop to see how far it had come. He spent his days mentoring young mechanics, sharing his hard-earned wisdom with those who would carry on the legacy. One evening, as the sun set over the shop, Martin sat in the courtyard with Snoop Dogg. They watched as the mechanics worked late into the night, their laughter and determination filling the air. "You know," Martin said, his voice reflective, "I never thought I'd see the day when this place would become something like this. It's more than I ever dreamed of." Snoop smiled, his gaze fixed on the bustling workshop. "That's the thing about dreams, Martin. They don't have limits. They just keep growing, as long as you let them." Martin nodded, a sense of peace washing over him. For the first time in his life, he felt like he had truly made a difference. The success of Reynolds Automotive Innovations didn't just reshape the automotive industry, it transformed lives far beyond the confines of the shop. The training centers they established became beacons of hope in communities that had long been overlooked. Young men and women from all walks of life found opportunities they never thought possible, opportunities to learn, grow, and contribute to something greater than themselves. One of those individuals was a 17-year-old named Jamal. Growing up in a tough neighborhood, Jamal had always been fascinated by cars but had never believed he could turn his passion into a career. When he heard about the training program at Reynolds Automotive Innovations, he decided to take a chance. With encouragement from his family, he applied and was accepted. On his first day at the training center, Jamal was both nervous and excited. The building was a modern facility filled with cutting-edge equipment, but it was the people who made the biggest impression. The instructors, many of whom were former Reynolds employees, treated every student with respect and kindness. They believed in their potential and pushed them to achieve more than they thought possible. Jamal quickly became one of the standout trainees. His natural talent for mechanics, combined with his determination to succeed, caught the attention of the instructors. One day, during a visit to the center, Kyle noticed Jamal working on a particularly complex engine rebuild. He was impressed not only by the teenager's skill but also by his focus and dedication. "You're doing great work there," Kyle said, approaching Jamal with a smile. Jamal looked up, his eyes widening when he recognized Kyle. "Mr. Reynolds." "Thank you, sir. I'm just trying to do my best." Kyle chuckled, shaking his head. "Call me Kyle. And from what I can see, your best is pretty damn good. Keep it up." Those words stayed with Jamal, fueling his determination to excel. Over the next few months, he continued to thrive, earning the respect of his peers and instructors alike. By the time he graduated from the program, he had a job offer waiting for him at Reynolds Automotive Innovations. Back at the flagship shop, the team was preparing for yet another milestone, the grand opening of their first international location. The shop, located in Berlin, would serve as both a repair center and a training hub, bringing their mission of innovation and inclusivity to a global audience. The opening ceremony was a star-studded event, attended by industry leaders, celebrities, and journalists from around the world. Snoop Dogg, of course, was a guest of honor, his influence and support instrumental in the shop's rise to prominence. He stood on the stage alongside Kyle and Jamal, who had been invited to speak about his journey. Jamal stepped up to the microphone, his nerves evident but his determination shining through. He took a deep breath and began to speak. "A year ago, I didn't think I had a future. I thought the best I could hope for was just getting by, day by day. But then I found Reynolds Automotive Innovations. They didn't just teach me how to fix cars, they taught me how to believe in myself. They gave me a chance when no one else would, and because of that, my life has changed forever." The audience erupted into applause, moved by Jamal's heartfelt words. For Kyle and the team, it was a reminder of why they had started this journey in the first place. Their work wasn't just about cars, it was about people. As the years went on, Reynolds Automotive Innovations continued to expand, with locations popping up in cities across the globe. The shop's influence extended beyond the automotive industry, inspiring businesses in other fields to adopt similar models of inclusivity and mentorship. Martin, now well into his 70s, often reflected on the incredible journey they had taken. He still visited the original shop regularly, watching with pride as Kyle and the team carried on the legacy they had built together. Though his hands were no longer steady enough to work on cars, his presence was a constant source of wisdom and encouragement for the mechanics. One day, as Martin sat in the break room sipping a cup of coffee, Kyle walked in with a familiar notebook tucked under his arm. He sat down across from Martin, sliding the notebook across the table. "Recognize this?" Kyle asked with a grin. Martin opened the notebook, his heart swelling with emotion as he flipped through the pages. It was Kyle's original design notebook, filled with sketches, notes, and ideas that had eventually become the foundation of their success. "Of course I do," Martin said, his voice tinged with nostalgia. "This is where it all started." Kyle nodded. "I've been thinking a lot about how far we've come. None of this would have happened if you hadn't given me a chance. If you hadn't changed." Martin chuckled, shaking his head. "You give me too much credit, kid. The real change came from you, and from this team. All I did was get out of the way." "Maybe," Kyle said thoughtfully. "But sometimes, getting out of the way is the hardest part." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, the hum of activity in the shop serving as a backdrop to their reflections. Finally, Martin broke the silence. "You've done good, Kyle. Better than I ever could have imagined. This place, it's more than I ever dreamed it could be." Kyle smiled, his respect for Martin evident. "That's because we did it together." In the years that followed, Reynolds Automotive Innovations cemented its place as a leader in the industry, not just for its groundbreaking designs but for its unwavering commitment to making a difference. The shop's story became a symbol of what could be achieved when people set aside their differences and worked toward a common goal. And though Martin eventually passed away, his legacy lived on in every engine rebuilt, every trainee mentored, and every life changed by the shop he had started. His portrait hung in the lobby of the original garage, a reminder of the man who had learned to lead with humility and heart. As for Kyle, he continued to push the boundaries of what was possible, always striving to honor the lessons he had learned along the way. With Snoop Dogg as a lifelong friend and supporter, the shop remained a beacon of hope and inspiration, proving that even the smallest of places could leave the biggest of impacts. And so, the story of Reynolds Automotive Innovations became more than just a tale of success. It became a testament to the power of transformation, the strength of community, and the belief that, with the right people by your side, anything is possible. Several years after Reynolds Automotive Innovations reached its global peak, its impact had grown far beyond the automotive industry. The name had become synonymous with second chances, innovation, and community transformation. But as the shop and its initiatives expanded worldwide, the heart of the operation remained at the original garage, the humble place where it all began. Kyle stood at the center of the shop floor one evening, gazing at the walls adorned with photographs of their journey. There were images of the first prototype they built, snapshots of the team at expos, and candid shots of Martin laughing alongside the mechanics. At the far end of the wall was a framed picture of Martin and Snoop Dogg, shaking hands during the shop's first anniversary celebration under its new name. It was more than a timeline, it was a testament to the lives they had changed. The familiar hum of an engine interrupted Kyle's thoughts. He turned to see Jamal, now a senior mechanic, putting the finishing touches on a customer's car. Jamal's transformation from a shy teenager to a confident leader was one of Kyle's proudest accomplishments. "Late night?" Kyle asked, walking over to Jamal. Jamal wiped his hands on a rag and smiled. "Couldn't leave until this was perfect. Mrs. Hernandez has been saving up for months to get this done, and I want it to be worth every penny." Kyle nodded, his heart swelling with pride. "That's why you're one of the best, Jamal. You never forget who you're doing this for." Jamal chuckled, setting down his tools. "I learned from the best." The next morning, the shop was abuzz with excitement. It was the anniversary of the training center's founding, and they were hosting an open house to showcase their programs and celebrate the achievements of their trainees. Dozens of young people from around the city, along with their families, gathered at the center to explore the opportunities it offered. Kyle stood at the entrance, greeting visitors and answering questions. He couldn't help but feel a sense of déjà vu as he watched the wide-eyed trainees walk through the doors, their expressions filled with a mix of curiosity and hope. It reminded him of his own journey and the incredible support that had brought him to this point. In the middle of the event, a familiar figure arrived, drawing murmurs of excitement from the crowd. Snoop Dogg, wearing a casual yet stylish outfit, strolled into the center with his signature charisma. Kyle rushed over to greet him, his smile widening. "Snoop, you made it," Kyle said, shaking his hand. "Of course I did," Snoop replied, his grin infectious. "Had to come see how my favorite shop is doing." "Y'all still making magic?" Kyle laughed. "Always. Let me show you around." As they walked through the center, Snoop took the time to speak with the trainees, offering words of encouragement and advice. His presence was a source of inspiration for many, especially those who had faced their own struggles. He listened to their stories, shared a few of his own, and reminded them that their past didn't define their future. One trainee, a young woman named Alina, caught Snoop's attention. She had joined the program after leaving a difficult home situation and was now on track to become one of their top graduates. "Alina, right?" Snoop said, leaning against a workbench as she adjusted an engine part. "Yes, sir," she replied, glancing up nervously.